And it is 10/22/2020. It's Thursday. The markets are live, and now we are live as well. Tackle Trading's halftime report, our daily show where we go through the stock market, all of the news, corporate items that we're interested in, charts, commodities, currencies, anything grabbing our attention that we think will have an impact on our trading. And we break it all down, give you guys our insight and analysis so that you can better run your daily routine as well and get the information you need. Today's show, we've got a couple of people here as always. Regulars, Matt and myself, and Mark. Mark back on a Thursday. I think this is your regular slot a day from now on, Marky. So welcome, sir. We're going to be talking earnings, stimulus. There's a little bit of economic data. Wasn't really a market mover though, but mostly it's a big earnings roundup and the technical battle continuing to happen on these charts. Let's start with introductions and pleasantries. Matt, how you doing today, sir?
Doing very good. Excited to be here with the crew to break down the market here today. Not a lot of actual news in the market, but there is quite a bit of earnings to update here today. You know, with Tesla reporting, AT&T, CSX, Lam Research, Las Vegas Stands, Coca-Cola, and just a bevy of other fairly decent names out there as well. All reporting earnings here today. So, you know, we got quite a bit to cover from an earnings standpoint, but excited to be here to break down all the activity in the market.
And Marky, I know you're in a great mood. Market conditions kind of flat and doji and fit your cash flow models that you love.
It's been a good. It has been a good stretch for me. It has. So, not that, you know. Listen, I can lose money though and be in a good mood too, right?
Sure.
Life is good. Life is beautiful. You lose money on one day.
Time you ever saw your brother lose money and he was in a good mood?
It's theoretically possible.
If he lost a horse in the driveway, he would be in a bad mood. So it's not just money. So.
Listen, it's theoretically possible. One day, right now, I'll probably die the next day because I'll have this like euphoric moment of like, it doesn't matter, life's beautiful, and then I'll kick over, right? But until then, hey, we are who we are.
You know, Mark's having a really good day when he's like, you know what, even if I was losing money, I would be so happy here today.
Oh, I like it.
Mark woke up to some green here today. That's what he woke up to.
Is that the definition of a humble brag right there, Matt?
I think
listen, you have the theta curve, right? Those November options, they start
You're just diving into this, aren't you?
You know, well, they are. I mean, when a theta trader starts to get in that low 30s, high 20s to the next monthly, boy, theta starts to really bleed off and things get really pretty and you start looking forward to the next month.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's really diving into that humble brag there, T.
He's going all for it. I like
it.
Let's break these markets down, Matt. Let's start with the technicals. By the way, you just had an incredible read on the charts the last few months. Anybody who's been here in the halftime report knows that. Drawing that battle line at 3,400 when it was below it, talking about the psychology day by day as we were fighting it as resistance. Now it's kind of developing as some support zones here, Matt. Old resistance, new support potential. And you have, and Mark, is that the definition of a pinch there?
That is a pinch.
Little pinchy poo happening.
20, lowering 9. That is a class. That is the most common of all pinches. Actually, is the 920 pinch.
What's your typical read on a pinch like that before I get into the actual analysis here?
Okay, usually a pinch breaks to the longer term, the longer version of shorter term trends. So the shorter term trend over the last month has been up, right? So like if this were a 5-minute chart, you have a little rally, comes down, rise in 20 catches it, and then you get a little spark. So if this was a 5-minute chart, from a day trading perspective, I would be looking for a break of the trend line and to place a day trade. So that's how a pinch normally breaks. Now,
well, a swing trader shouldn't have any other analysis than that. I mean, if that's the analysis on that intraday chart, that would be the analysis on the daily chart as well, right? And when you're looking at this from a technical perspective, just to kind of update it, nothing's really updating from an overall support and resistance zone. You're still in that zone of 3,400 by 3,420. We talked about yesterday how you were trying to find some intraday support right here at that 3,420 level. Obviously, last night we broke through that level, and where did it come down to? Look at the aggressive breakdown on the Japanese cash open yesterday. Do you guys have your YouTube unmuted?
Yep, we're good now.
All right, thank you. But look at the size of the movement yesterday on the Japanese open after the market closed yesterday, and it was getting beat up pretty handily, down 30 points in a matter of just minutes, and then it just stuck It stuck the landing like a good gymnast. It stuck the landing right there at that significant hold number 3,400. It hesitates throughout the entire night action. On the European Open, it starts moving back up right into that zone. And so when you're looking at this from an intraday perspective, there's really nothing to update from the overall daily mechanics of a technical trader, because we're still looking at that 3,400 level as a major area of support. Obviously, you tested it earlier today. That's right where the 20-day moving average is, obviously catching up above 3,400. That's right where that 50-day moving average is as well. And so the battle's being played out. There's no doubt about that. And one of the things we thought that might have a spark in the market if we did not get stimulus was positive earnings. We felt like, we were going to see well north of 70% on EPS beats. Tim, we're going to get somewhere in the high 70s most likely on earnings beats, both in terms of EPS. Revenues are going to be above 50% on beats. Guidance is coming back little by little, but mostly on the positive side. But earnings has yet to be able to take over that stimulus conversation in the market, even today. And I'll break these down a little bit more later on. But Tesla with a good beat, CSX with a beat, Lam Research with a good healthy beat. Lam Research up 46.7% on revenue year over year today on the report. Las Vegas Sands with a good beat on EPS numbers, even though some of their other report was kind of nasty. Coca-Cola with the 10-cent beat, which represents a 20% beat on EPS numbers. FCX with a beat, CMG with a beat here today. The only beat the only stock that was of interest to me today that did not beat was AT&T, and they came in line 76 cents versus the 77 cents. So earnings has been fairly positive, but it has not yet had that market response. And yeah, we're still talking some lesser names, but we had Tesla. That's a major name out there. And it just really has not had the ability to spark that buyer's belief in the market as of yet. Obviously, we're just starting this earnings conversation, but it has not had the ability to overcome the Nancy Pelosi headlines, the Mark Meadow headlines, the Mnuchin headlines, the Trump headlines, the overall stimulus narrative that the market has adopted over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. And so when you're looking at the market here from a causality perspective and overall kind of the market building a belief, the market is yet to have that belief really kind of built in, but they're fighting for support, right? They're fighting for support. And so even though we've had sell day, you're still seeing this as a bullish retracement. You're still seeing this as a bullish retracement that's really fighting for that level of support right there at 3,400, which is a very significant level of support. And at this point, I think we're still all just kind of waiting before we start really getting aggressive in the market. I think we're all kind of just waiting for that confirmation trigger, right? And we've tested up yesterday. We tested up the day before. We tested up on Friday. We tested up last Thursday. We've tried to test that confirmation, but yet it hasn't had the ability to. Market test up, comes down, test up, comes down, test up, come down. And so, yeah, you asked me the other day, if you see a trade, do you take the trade? Absolutely, but you got to have confirmation. Until we see this market confirm, you're dipping your toe in, you're lowering your position sizes, you're in a risk off environment to a certain extent in the short term. Now let's talk about where that potential confirmation could come from. When you're looking at this, let me kind of break it down from an intraday perspective very quickly here. Let's highlight that. Let's break this down on that 30-minute chart. When you're looking at this, and this is not a clean, standard, bold, flag retracement. It's got some chop to it. On the intraday, it's got some chop to it, but you do have some overhead trend lines that have developed in this choppy type retracement. And if you look at a couple of these trend lines right there, You see that one to me, that trend line to me is the one that I am looking at. You do have another one that kind of goes on top of that right there as well. You can see it connecting the dots. So you got these two trend lines that are not more than that. You have two of these trend lines. Any other trend line that is drawn is being drawn inaccurately. So you have these two trend lines right here. The one that is very significant is the one that catches this trend line coming down, 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 down. If you violate that trend line, let's say you violate that trend line, you break up above that 3450, you kiss off the higher trend line, form a retracement, you could start mapping out a little bit more of an aggressive confirmation when you look at this as a triangle type trend line coming down. And you look, and I wouldn't call the breakout of that confirmation the same way we tested above that trend line here. Where did it come into? The overall trend line. It tested that trend line here. Where did it come into? The overall trend line. So I want to call that confirmation simply because it goes above this trend line here. I would like to see a higher low develop, which would be that next pattern in a bullish uptrend develop. And then you can start to see that intraday trend start to align. You could start to see daily confirmation at that point as well. And so when you're looking at this as where could confirmation happen, you obviously have that ultimate significant whole number right there at 3,500. I think if you close above 3,500, you can call that any degree of confirmation. But at this point, with the market coming all the way down to that 3,400 level, I mean, you got to wait a good 2-3 days perhaps before it ever gets back up to that 3,500. I think at this point, it does make some sense to readjust where that trigger would be, to readjust where you would consider that confirmation. And everybody's got to approach this on their own individual perspective. But for me, if we do break up above this trend line and start establishing higher pivot highs above this 30-minute trend line, at that point, I do believe you could see the intraday analysis start to align and start to see some real good bullish movement to the top side. And so that's kind of where my read is. Earnings could have been that catalyst that overtook the mentality. But as of right now, we're still just focused on stimulus talk.
You know, speaking of stimulus, Mark, that has been the driver of the market, or the lack of the driver here recently, as we've not really gotten clarity on this deal, and these deadlines, so-called deadlines, keep getting pushed out, and the conversation continues to go on. There was some commentary even here today, Mark, midday from Speaker Pelosi, where she talked about some optimism around it. What's the latest on stimulus, Mark? What do we know?
And one of the funny things I've seen in the last 4 trading sessions of this week is that we've had a number of headlines, right? And there's been a lot of, hey, positive, they're still talking, they get bought up. I mean, you see this in the wick action on candlesticks, but there's never been follow through. So algos get a nice little bump up during the day and then immediately sell off, get a bump during the day, sell off. You saw that a little bit today, the same thing when Nancy Pelosi came out and said in a news conference, because she held a news conference, and when it was announced on the news conference, market sold off because people were anticipating that she's going to come out and say, hey, we're just not a deal. But she gave the algos another bone. Hey, listen, as a cash flow trader, I think both I can't even think Larry Kudlow. Normally I'm thinking Larry Kudlow for the BS that comes out, propping up the market, but this time it has been Mnuchin and Nancy Pelosi back and forth saying, hey, we're making progress, we're hopeful, we're optimistic. And she gave another one. She phrased it differently this time, though. We're just about there. And it was a new phrasing of the optimistic standpoint, where she came out of the press conference and said, hey, we're just about there. Now, she's expressed hopefulness for like 6 weeks, right? And did call attention in the press conference to the need for school funding, which has been a sticking point with the GOP on funds for states specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just about there. I mean, once again, this is all likely and has been a big dog and pony show, a lot of smoke and mirrors. You never know. I mean, that's the thing. If for some reason they come out and say, we got a deal, this market is going to have a massive day. But that is a lot of ifs and probably nots before that happens.
You know, it's interesting though, because you are getting the most positivity out of all three camps here in some regards today. Maybe it's just the headlines I'm reading, Mark, but even Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who everybody's on this sticking point that the Republican Senate's not going to pass this deal. He said, this bill is probably going to be higher than I want it to be. And I'm very uncomfortable with that. That said, I think the price of not doing something is even higher. The White House is very optimistic from their, kind of spokespeople and whatnot.
No, I mean, because there's been analysis. This is my read on it. McConnell does not want to put it to a vote because there will be no votes from senators. But if the House passes it and the White House signs on it, McConnell will put it to a vote. It will pass. It won't pass unanimously. There will be some Republican opposition. But like McConnell has basically said, I don't want to vote on this, but if we have to vote on it, I will. And so just reading, because Mitch McConnell just reads the political climate. So I don't think there's going to be Republican opposition. My thing is, I don't think Nancy Pelosi is going to agree to a deal. That's my take on it. If it gets to the Senate, though, it will pass, I believe.
Matt, what's your read on stimulus? They keep talking. These deadlines, like I said, keep coming and going, but the conversation keeps going on. What's your read here on this one?
I'm kind of like the market today. I'm getting to the point where I don't care. I mean, is it just me that's sick and tired of the will they or won't they?
No, I think the whole market
is it just me that's sick and tired of regurgitating the exact same things we've been saying for a month straight?
No, I don't think it is just you.
On a day where, Tim, you started the conversation on stimulus being like, they're talking positive, right? They're talking positive. Market's not doing anything.
Like the boy who cried wolf kind of scenario. I think the market's tired of the headlines and the market wants to see, is it actually going to happen? What you're going to do? Let's get something done or don't.
Guys, they've been doing this boondoggling thing for well over a month now. I mean, at some point,
fabulous.
At some point, aren't we all just going to be like, they're both just trying to stall?
As long as they can just keep it up a few more days.
I get it, Mark, but and I'm widely speculating without any evidence here, but I do not believe Nancy Pelosi nor Mitch McConnell actually want this vote to be had before the election. I think Trump does. I think Democratic Congress people do. I think many in the Republican Party do. I think many people in both the Republican and Democratic Party want to see this vote get done. I think a majority of people in the Republican and the Democratic Party want to see a deal done. I'm not sure the two people that have the power in this conversation, i.e. Mitch McConnell on the Senate, Nancy Pelosi in the House, actually want to see a vote on this still before the election. I'm not sure Nancy Pelosi wants to see Trump be able to use this from a political perspective. And I do not believe Mitch McConnell wants to see Republican senators be put in a extremely vulnerable position just days before an election where down ballot senators are being very, very concerned about polling data. So yeah, I believe a deal can get done? Absolutely, 100%. The numbers are so tight and they've agreed on so many things. If they want a deal, they could have a deal, but the reality is the same thing that was said today could have been said last week and the week before. So I don't know. I do believe a deal is going to get done. Does it get done before the election? I still think that's a hope.
There's also the scenario they can agree to the terms of the deal, and then it just takes, quote unquote, time to draft the legislation so they don't put it.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's a lie. That's an absolute lie. It does not. That legislation is already drafted. It's already drafted in language of the Republican side. It's already drafted in the language of the Democratic side. All they have to do is redline and merge those two together. That would take somebody literally less than an hour of actual work, and that would be done by an intern. And I say that as a former intern. So no, that language is already written. They don't need to do any work besides the actual taking a vote and executing on what the bill states. That's just the parlor games that these politicians play with one another. But no, it doesn't take that long. The execution does, but not the actual vote. Guys, the Senate, what are we talking about with language? Are you kidding me? The Senate voted on a $500 billion bill the other day. The House has passed multiple bills in the last 3 months. The language is done. That's just stall tactics.
Well, and it's they've been stalling now for a while. We'll see if they continue to stall. The market is stalling on the lack of actual clarity on this whole thing. So, and I'm tired of it too, man. I think everybody is, quite frankly. It's the same conversation every day. Will it? Won't it? We're reading
It's
into
the same
headlines and
headline
statements.
every single day.
Yeah.
And the market, and today you're right. There was some positive, type momentum on perhaps stimulus. But what did it do?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Nothing. The market's waking up to this being like, oh man, guys, what are we, 12 days away from the election? 12 days?
It is 12 days. Yeah.
Right? Which means you only have 6 more market days, or 7 more market days if you include Monday.
That's
I don't know.
interesting to think. Yeah.
I'm not sure a deal's going to get done here before the election. I still think it's less than 50% probability, probably still in that 20% probability. But I just see so much just traditional political nonsense going on right now.
Unless
Just
it goes to a
purely
vote
political
tomorrow
nonsense.
or Monday through the House, then it's not going to go for
It's
a vote
not
in the
the
Senate.
House,
It's just
though.
I know, but the number, like the amount of time for it to go through both houses. I mean, could it be done? But just them setting it up and voting to bring it to the floor, and then after it goes up for a vote, like all those procedures, even to get it there, take longer than a week.
Mm-hmm.
I got a simple take. The United States of America is the most lucrative financial country in the world, and there is an election in 12 days where people are fighting for power of that country. I can't see a deal getting done.
Yeah.
It would shock me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is about power. This is about control. This is about politics.
While we're waiting,
Yeah, but it's also what we absolutely hate about what we're seeing in politics. And so I don't want to get into the muck here, guys, on stimulus. Will they, won't they? I honestly don't care at this point. I'm approaching this market pure technically.
and then obviously the earnings roundups are starting to get interesting as well. And at least that information we can process data and numbers and revenue and earnings instead of just rampant speculation. So I'm enjoying those. Those reports that have been coming out. They're very interesting to look at. So let's move on from this one here. Broad markets kind of testing support. Pretty orderly pullback into that support. Got a little pinch going on. We'll keep watching these charts over the next couple of days.
And again, the one thing I do want to point out technically that I feel is adjusting with the data, because you do have to adjust as new data comes out. I don't think anything is changed from a trend perspective. I don't think anything has changed from a support resistance perspective. I do think aggressive confirmation can change with that trend line type conversation we had earlier in the halftime report. Aggressive confirmation can change here, but trend pattern, support, resistance, all maintain the same.
Mm-hmm. Dina gave me a good little chuckle here in the chat. That's pretty funny, actually.
I actually laughed out loud at that
I don't
one.
even pay attention to stimulus anymore. Wake me when foreplay ends and someone starts breathing hard, Mark. Well,
That was well done, Dina.
That's very funny, actually.
That was well done, Dina.
All right.
Hey, listen, I like the foreplay. You know how many algo bumps we've gotten as bulls from that foreplay? Give me about 5 more days of foreplay before telling me it's not going to happen.
Here's the thing, though, is somebody's obviously bored with the foreplay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Dude,
I'm bored with the foreplay.
We're gonna
Get it on.
Let's move along with this.
Get on.
Commodities next here, Matt. Flash through gold and crude oil if we can. Let's start with either one of them. I actually kind of like the gold chart from many perspectives. It's back down here today. I still think the development is fine over the last little bit. Hit that moving average, Matt, came back down. Now it's back at an intraday support. What are you seeing here on gold?
Nothing. The 50-day moving average and previous resistance did what it does, and it held. So nothing changes on the updating on the analysis that we did yesterday. So if you want a little bit more of a deep dive, definitely check out yesterday. But no, a down day at resistance. Wake me up when that doesn't happen.
Yep. Crude oil next, if we can. Then I want to bring Mark in on this one.
You definitely want to bring Mark in on this one. I need to get more tea.
Yeah, tea time for
Yep.
Maddie there. Mark, what is going on with crude oil here in terms of the fundamentals, the chart, and then also you had some notes from Goldman Sachs I thought were interesting about 2021 and commodity prices. Give us some read there.
It's going sideways still. Listen, if you're watching this for the first time, you're going to find that to be very boring analysis. The plain and simple fact with oil, like I've been saying for a couple months now, I expect a lot of boring. Now, there are going to be little times, right, where it goes down a few days and feels the world's like going to crash. But that's been a couple clean bounces off the 36.50 range. So there are going to be times. There are going to be times where it feels a little euphoric and has a couple days up. In the end, we're going to look 6 months from now and be like, wow, oil didn't do a whole lot. Now, eventually, we are going to have a catalyst, i.e., the reopening of the economy. Eventually, we're going to have a vaccine. Things are going to get back to normal. That will serve as a legitimate catalyst for oil, and I want to be directionally long when that happens. Until then, learn. If you don't know how to play a consolidation pattern, stay out of oil. If you do know how to play a consolidation pattern, oil is going to be a reasonable cash flow environment for the next several months. And joining the bullish camp in commodities as a whole, talking silver, gold, oil, copper, everything, Goldman Sachs sees a structural bull market. They just released a report on commodities as a whole in 2021. The driving catalyst, they say, a weaker US dollar, rising inflation risk, and demand by additional fiscal and monetary stimulus from major central banks around the world. And I think the analysis is spot on. And if that is true, and I think all of those things are true, then it's a really positive backdrop for commodities as a whole for the next 12 to 15 months. That includes copper, that includes oil, that includes silver, that includes gold, which they say specifically on gold and silver. Very bullish on it.
Let me get this right. So Goldman came out with a very important report that said if we're going to increase money into the market, stocks will go up, commodities will go up, and the dollar will go down.
Listen.
No, is that what they said?
I think we issued the same report 14 months ago. So
yeah.
Okay. Is that a hot take?
So yeah,
Goldman,
listen.
Thanks for waking up, bud.
Yeah. These $1 million paid financial analysts, they're not afraid to take bold calls, are they?
What they do? Google that analysis.
I mean, seriously. The halftime show all year is what happened. We've been talking about that all the time.
Oh my hell, that analysis has only been around for about 6,000 years.
Yeah. Crude oil chart. If we stay on this chart any longer, I'm going to pull my teeth out. So let's move past it if we can. There's nothing going on in that chart. Bitcoin, though. Hey, now you're going to wake me up here, Maddie. What a beautiful run. And you got to love the candle today on Bitcoin specifically after the huge blow off. And it didn't blow off. Actually, we've carried through a little bit here. Matt, what you read on Bitcoin chart here?
I think you got to see it as a little bit of a positive. After yesterday's big type price movement we saw in Bitcoin, obviously the technicals have been very strong on Bitcoin. But after the news that came out on Venmo, PayPal, how PayPal was going to allow Venmo to use that as a cash app, not a cash app, but as a Bitcoin wallet and other cryptocurrencies. Obviously, Bitcoin had its really good day. I wasn't expecting any type of aggressive follow through, but I do think it's positive that Bitcoin held up without selling off. That the buyers from yesterday were confident enough to be like, hey, let's carry through that momentum. And a little bit of that starts right here at that 12,000 mark where you do have an old old support. So that's kind of where you're looking at is hypothetical support forming. Also that 9 EMA is going to act as a momentum support level. But overall, I don't see a new trigger here in any capacity. I just think it does show a little bit of a positive momentum from a bull perspective that they did hold up after a very impressive day yesterday.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, what you read on Bitcoin here recently? I mean, you weren't here in the show yesterday when we had that huge run up, and obviously you've been calling for a blow off top here for a while. Matt's read has been dead on now for months in terms of the technicals, the breakout carried through. What's your read on Bitcoin here?
I still think, I don't think we've seen the blow off top yet. I don't know when that occurs, right? The only thing I worry about, Bitcoin has enjoyed a trifecta of goodness lately on catalysts, these news catalysts, like the Square taking it, PayPal taking it. Just, the federal government, Jay Powell's speech on monetized, current digital currencies. Paul Tudor Jones coming out today and saying, hey, we're just in the first inning. I'm more bullish on Bitcoin has enjoyed those catalysts. And I think those catalysts have legs. The only thing I worry about Bitcoin is a general sell-off environment that if something were to occur. I think absent that, like if we have this risk off, and we've seen that, Bitcoin doesn't do very well in those risk off environments where everybody's selling everything. Bitcoin gets caught up in that pretty good. As long as that doesn't occur, and we'll see that everywhere, right? Markets crashing, gold's going down, silver's going down, oil's going down, everything's going down. Bitcoin's going to get drugged down with that. Absent that, I think you have all of the criteria for that real legitimate blow off top, and it will make 2020 complete for me.
Mark, and I certainly agree with you that this is not a blow off top, but it could be the beginnings of that, correct?
Absolutely. We've seen this in charts. And when I talk blow off tops, I mean, go pull up Nikola, right? Go pull up. I mean, there's a lot of examples. We've seen some Chinese financial companies where you had this crazy, insane momentum that starts to build and it just gets going, right? And so we've seen this in so many different areas of the market, some of them really short, the last few weeks, and some of them that has just been like crazy long lasting months. And Bitcoin hasn't had that. And it has just felt to me this whole time that Bitcoin's going to have its time. And I think it's finally getting the legitimate catalysts necessary to get that momentum going. It would be terrible luck if for whatever reason, Nancy Pelosi came out and said, we're not doing a deal. And then election worries thing. And there's this risk off environment because Bitcoin's going to get sucked down to that in the short term if that happens. But absent that, we have all of the criteria in Bitcoin. We have the type of instrument it is, the momentum, what we've seen in 2020. And if this train gets going, there's some money to be made. And so obviously position size accordingly, right? It's like, I don't care how bullish you are. You only put so much of your eggs in the basket. It's position portfolio sizing. You never break those parameters. Every once in a while, you'll be like, yeah, I made so much money because I had half my account in a certain thing or a quarter of my account. That's going to get you a long term. And eventually you're going to be complaining about trading how it doesn't work 3 years from now. Position size, be happy to make reasonable amount of money with proper position sizing. Be conservative. It's okay to just make money. You don't have to make $1 gazillion a day, but Bitcoin's set up for potentially that.
Wonderful movements, wonderful charts. And by the way, you guys' analysis.
Tim, just don't give me a risk-off environment in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Tim,
I mean, I've been advocating Bitcoin for 4 or 5 years now.
But just on that note, though, the market's been down for like 9 days, and Bitcoin's screaming.
We've had the right catalyst. It's been this series of catalysts that have occurred, that have been like, ooh, PayPal, ooh, Square, ooh. I mean, it's just like, most of the time I don't understand Bitcoin. I understand Bitcoin the last week. Next week I won't understand it again. But it might. You don't have to. Once momentum gets go, you don't have to. Momentum and technical analysis, and then things start making a lot of sense.
Matt, any last thoughts on Bitcoin here?
It certainly has had that positive catalyst from a causation perspective, and that's why it is breaking away from the marketplace. This has been a risk on asset class. There's no doubt about it. It's traded with the market. There was a lot of correlation between Bitcoin and the market up until about a week and a half ago. And a week and a half ago, you had that combination of William Barr coming out, anti-crypto in general, talking about the illegal usage of crypto. I do think that woke up a lot of people that are, have been in the crypto space. And I'm talking myself specifically, so maybe I'm forward projecting a little bit, but I can tell you for me, it woke me up. I've been on the, I was anti-Bitcoin, anti-crypto. I kind of got to the point of net neutrality. And over the course of the last few months, I've been increasingly getting more interested, not in this space, but in this specific cryptocurrency called Bitcoin. And then when William Barr said what he did a week and a half ago, I was like, oh yeah, you're right. you're right. Bitcoin is used in illegal activity, but you know what currency is used the most in illegal activity? That would be the United States dollar, William Barr. And that got me back on the fighting mentality for Bitcoin, Tim. And you called it in the moment. If there was a catalyst that could have got me back on the crypto train, it was some central bank or some legal authority coming out and trying to decry how illegitimate it is and how it's horrible. And it's just like, yeah, that brings back my fighting spirit to a certain extent. And then you had Jay Powell give the speech where he talked about digitizing the United States dollar and other traditional currencies. And then you had Square before that, Venmo and PayPal after that. And so you've had this in the last week and a half. You've had this rush of information coming into this space specifically, and it has had the ability to break away from the market. And so traditionally you'd be a little bit concerned that the market is sitting at a support level fighting for confirmation, and you'd be a little concerned about how Bitcoin would be handling that. But with these news and it's coming back to back to back to back, it's really had that positive momentum. So to me, is the question ultimately for me, is this something that can be a little bit more long lasting? And I'm starting to kind of believe that it can be. But Tim, that's from my perspective. What about your perspective here? You're the dude that's been sitting on Bitcoin for 7 years. You're the dude that didn't sell at 20,000. You're the bag holder all the way down to 3,000. You're the dude that was calling Bitcoin 50,000. You're that dude. You're the believer here. You have a belief in this thing.
Yep.
What's your analysis from a long-term perspective?
Well, give me the long-term chart if you can. There's several things that go into my thinking. Number one, I'm of the line of thinking that, we've talked about on the podcast a few months ago, that Paul Tudor Jones is referenced. Paul Tudor Jones is catching up on that. Many Bitcoin believers, we've been talking about things he's talking about now for years. And Matt, when Bitcoin was introduced into the marketplace, it had a different kind of feel to it, obviously, because we had the blow off top. It was after such a huge move. Can you believe it's been 3 years since we had that enormous run in Bitcoin from like 5K to 20K in like 3 months? It's been 3 years now.
Sometimes it feels like a day is literally a year. And then when you look back, it's like, oh my goodness, that was just then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wow.
And there's several lessons from the last several years on Bitcoin. Number one, you introduced it to the futures market. The traders came in and they punished the product. It was an inflationary product. It was way too high, and it came all the way back down to 3,100. I've been a holder, like you say, Matt, now for 7 years. I've been a buyer, an investor, and a long-term believer in Bitcoin. And this is the most optimistic I've been about the chart perspective. I mean, I would say for 3 years since that run up in 2017, obviously. What does that mean and how does it translate? Well, I can tell you this, I'm not going anywhere. The way that I approach this product, it represents something to me in my portfolio that I'm not going to move away from. It's truly an investment for me. Okay.
Yeah.
But I love the space. I love what I'm seeing in Ethereum as well. That's the second.
The question I have for you is, are you adding to that position?
I have not this week. I did a couple of months ago, and I also on the breakout of the 10K, and I just love the development that it's had over the last 2 months. But I haven't added anything on these runs. I'm just holding on these runs and just very happy, obviously, when your investments start to work for you the way that you want. But I'm not going anywhere.
As it builds momentum here, is that something you are looking at adding to?
Yeah, next technical signal, I have a plan to add to the position. So,
okay.
Because the breakout here, though, like if you go back down to the daily chart, I know it can keep running on momentum.
You're not swing trading Bitcoin.
No.
So you're not looking at it like a hawk on a daily basis either.
No, if I got a clean technical pattern over the next month that developed, maybe it runs up to 14K and then backfills into like 12.5 where the old resistance was, and then I get a signal, I would add to the position. I love what the development is here,
so,
and I love it.
So the price movement and the causation is giving you greater confidence in your overall investment thesis.
Yep.
And you are looking at this point in adding to the position if now the right technical criteria starts to be met, correct?
Yeah, and I'll be patient with that.
Yeah.
I've been patient with this product for forever.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody been more patient. Okay, because you held from 20,000 to 3,000, and that's impressive. But you've been buying for 7 years, but you held through through that, but it wasn't just the holding through that. It was every day listening to me tell you how dumb you are for holding through that. I mean, I just got to give you just massive, massive props, because not only did you hold through that, you held through that with me chirping in your ear for literally 2 straight years. So kudos to you, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. You know, it's been quite a run here. And by the way, William Barr, I mean, we'll remember that moment for a long time. He woke up the crypto guys.
He did.
He did. He woke him up.
And again, I might be projecting here, but he woke me up.
Yeah. Yeah, he tickled the dragon, and the crypto nerds are out right now. There's no question about it. It's been an incredible performer. Best performer in the market for me this week, obviously, with those 4 candles just taking off. We're up almost $1,600 just in the first 4 trading days of the week.
And again, I just want to clarify and reiterate that you got to like what you're seeing here today on Bitcoin. It's very impressive. It's holding up despite what the market is doing today. After yesterday's type of movement, it would not have surprised or shocked anybody to see some profit taking here on Bitcoin in the short term with a move like that. The defense being held over the course of the last 24 hours, I do think it's impressive, but there's no new trade here. I do think you got to wait for the next technical setup.
Absolutely. By the way, no new trade in the dollar either. Let's move right into stocks if we can. And earnings roundup. Sorry, Marky. We're going to go into earnings roundup here, and actually quite a few names, Matt, that I do want to get to today. Yeah. We got to start with Tesla, I'm sure. Let's bring TSLA up. Matt, this was a highly anticipated report. Many people obviously are going to be paying attention to this one. What did you see in the numbers?
Numbers are actually fairly decent. First and foremost, this is the 5th consecutive quarter Tesla showed positive earnings. So kudos to Tesla for 5 straight quarters of positive earnings. They came in at 76 cents a share versus 58 cents a share. The earnings was widely anticipated this quarter because of the record numbers in deliveries they have seen in the last quarter. Tesla came in at 8.8 billion versus 8.2 billion on expectations, so a beat on EPS, and that's what you're going to see here today. You're going to see beats on EPS, and that's going to be the theme that we talk about all earnings season, because it's been a very impressive start so far towards earnings this quarter. Tesla, one of those very impressive starts. Now, what is a little bit concerning, because they did show a 39.2% increase in revenue year over year as well. A very healthy report, no doubt about that. What is concerning to me a little bit on these earnings numbers, and it is something that we are seeing that as different from last quarter, is last quarter we were seeing beats, but we were seeing minor beats with big price appreciation. The market was buying minor beats on lowered expectation. Right now, this earnings season, guys, we've had bigger beats on earnings numbers compared to last quarter, but what's the market doing? The market isn't just buying these reports, and that to me is a little concerning. Now, obviously, you have the backdrop of overall stimulus conversations, and you have the backdrop of being so tight against a very important election that is hotly contested across the entire United States. So you obviously have bigger political and geopolitical situations today than we did even 3-4 months ago. But the reality is you're getting better beats and less price performance. That's what you're seeing here so far in earnings. Tesla, obviously up on the day, but couldn't hold its muster against resistance getting sold off. But it wasn't just Tesla here today. When you're looking at some of the other stocks with earnings performance here, Lam Research, LRCX, very quickly. Lam Research down on the day, down good 10 points, 2.7%. Now, Lam Research, let me read you the numbers, guys. Lam Research beat on EPS $5.67 versus $5.17. Beat on revenue $3.2 billion versus $3.1 billion on expectation. Revenue increased 46.7% year over year. If you would have saw that report last quarter, what would have Lam Research have done?
It would have blew out to the top there. It would have broke out of resistance.
Okay, because that's the numbers you got last quarter on Lam Research. You got a beat on EPS. You got a beat on revenue. You also had a good, healthy increase in revenue year over year. And look what happened. Breakout run. This time, what happens? Break down, consolidate. And so Lam Research is just one example of, in my opinion, many examples this quarter where you're just seeing a micro, difference in how the market is handling these earnings numbers. And I do think there's a couple things of why that's the case. Number one, the market is fighting for support. It's fighting for support. It's on that, stretch of support where there's not a lot of causality behind it. The mentality in the market's a little bit different right now. You are tied against the election, but I also think something else is happening. And it's that trick I keep talking about. It's the trick I talked about last quarter. It's the trick I've been talking about this quarter. When you have these companies increase guidance by 2 pennies, 1 penny, 5 pennies, and it's really not an increase in guidance or anything like that. What it is these companies are trying to fool the algorithms, which over 85% of all financial statements are downloaded directly to algorithms these days. And so I do think the algorithms are waking up to the trick to a certain extent. So it's not that earnings were so good last quarter in comparison to this quarter. This quarter earnings are actually on par, a little bit better than last quarter. The price performance so far is a little bit different than the price performance last quarter. And so I do believe the algorithms are waking up to a little bit of the shenanigans that are being played in the market.
Shenanigans. You say
I was
shenanigans?
literally going to say, you mean shenanigans?
Shenanigans?
I love that.
Hey, Farva, what's that restaurant you like down on? You mean Shenanigans?
By the way, wonderful.
What's that trick companies do during earnings? You mean shenanigans?
Shenanigans.
The next person that says shenanigans, I'm going to pistol whip.
Oh, the greatest movie.
That's
Anyway,
funny.
yeah, definitely. And Matt, I'm concerned about the price reactions. Back on Tesla for a second, I think it's a good call on Lam Research. Even Tesla, if Tesla had these numbers last quarter, it would have blown out, don't you think? And ran a little bit. It's just not getting that price performance. I know the report from Tesla wasn't perfect, Matt, but fifth straight quarter of quarterly profit. That's probably going to give them a better argument for inclusion in the S&P 500. You had deliveries, and they cited Shanghai and China orders and all that stuff, but deliveries were pretty good here, Matt. I would have expected
there was nothing
more
in the numbers.
price.
There was nothing in the numbers that the bulls wouldn't be happy with, and there was nothing in the numbers that the bears aren't unhappy about. So yes, the numbers were decent.
They were decent.
So and revenue increasing 39.2%. That's a pretty decent growth-based revenue number. And so no, the overall report I'm taking as a fairly positive. I just think all earnings numbers right now are being downplayed and being faded in the face of the overall stimulus and election conversations the entire world is having right now, guys. I mean, we were talking to one of our guys over there in Europe just yesterday, and we were asking him what they talk about from the election, if just how important it is to them. And he says that's the only thing Europeans talk about is the U.S. election. And so if the only thing the Europeans are talking about right now is the U.S. election, if the only thing the Chinese are talking about is the U.S. election, I mean, obviously we know how much is being talked about here in the U.S. right now. So I do think earnings are being faded a little bit because of the tricks being caught, number one, but also because you have these overriding themes developing in not just in the market, but overall in our universe. And it is everybody's just fixated on 12 days from now.
We got a bunch here continuing to round up. We'll look at the price reactions as we go. Where do you want to go next here, Matt? AT&T, Coca-Cola.
Let's go to CSX here.
All right.
Let's go to CSX. Nice little CSX. Good company here, CSX. CSX comes in at 96 cents a share versus the expectation of 93. They came in at 2.6 billion versus 2.7 billion on the expectation, and they came in at 11.1% on year-over-year revenue growth. And so a fairly decent number. I lukewarm in general. Obviously, market tried to test up on that breakout channel, faded back down after that couldn't hold its muster on the conference call, and now you're looking at CSX as a potential breakout, in my opinion. And so I don't like the tall wick. Obviously, nobody likes that from a technical perspective, just given the fact that it, makes it a little bit difficult to trigger. But when you break this down from an intraday perspective, you got to understand how powerful that wick is. And when you look at that on the 5-minute chart, let's come all the way down to the 1-minute chart. Look at this, guys. That wick represents 1 minute in the market.
Yeah.
That is not people making decisions. That is algorithms coming in and buy. And so what you're really looking at here is I'm going to just kind of minimize that wick and look at this from an intraday perspective. And I kind of like that 82 level on CSX. I like the company. I really like the potential breakout here. You had that double top right there, 81.20. That also coincided with a little bit of a resistance right there at 81 back in February before the pandemic as well. You look at this on a weekly chart, you see the potential breakout there on that 3-year weekly chart. That is a very sexy potential breakout there, guys. And so when I'm looking at this, I'm really looking at this in two capacities on CSX. Number one, first and foremost, I want it to hold the breakout channel. That's number one. If it holds the breakout channel and it is fighting for that breakout channel right there at that 81 handle, you can see the low of the day coincides with the resistance channel over here. That to me needs to be held number one. If it doesn't, we're looking more at a flag-based pattern or a retracement at that point instead of a breakout. But I love the weekly chart. I love the daily breakout. The earnings numbers were not bad. They were lukewarm. I'm looking at a potential confirmation from an intraday perspective. Excuse me, let me break that down on an hourly chart. If it confirms above that 81.20 and breaks back up above 82, a close above 82 would be confirmation for me, despite the fact that we had that massive sell-off after the price appreciation, because I am discounting the wick. Now, other traders, they might look at that wick and be, I'm very concerned about it, and I certainly understand that. Me, that's algorithms at the very first of the day. I'm discounting that. 82 is confirmation for me.
I love the multiple time frame analysis that you just did right there. I think it paints a really clear picture. And by the way, that weekly chart might be the prettiest out of all the 3 time frames you looked at. The intraday time frame where you trigger, I love it. The breakout here on the daily, but the weekly, man, that's long term, potential that is breaking out of there, Matt. Over a course of almost 2 years.
It's setting up for something pretty decent on a pretty decent company too.
Yep, good. All right, next, where you want to go next here?
Next, let's go to Las Vegas. Let's go to Las Vegas Sands. And I'm going to need Mark's help on this one. Las Vegas Sands comes in at 67 cents a share on EPS, 50 cents on the expectation.
Minus 67 cents.
Yeah, minus 67 cents versus the expectation of minus 50. They come in at 586 million versus the 942 million in expectation, and revenue declined 82% year over year. Mark, help me understand the price movement here because
there was commentary that the algos picked up on about some green shoots from the Macau properties that Las Vegas Sands opens. And it's one of those things that, listen, everybody knew Las Vegas Sands, like the airlines, like Cinemark coming up, like a lot of the epicenter stocks. Their earnings are going to be atrocious, terrible. So it's not a surprise when they come in. And so, like, if there can be positive commentary somewhere, it gives the machines a reason to buy up overnight.
And by the way, that is a real thing. The positive commentary is a real thing.
And so these green shoots off their Macau properties, that things are getting better there, that gave enough reason on an epicenter stock. Like, if you're an epicenter stock and you have anything positive these days, it seems like you're going to have a couple day run or a day run or a gap up underneath. Now that usually gets faded up and that faded back, and that gap gets filled really quickly. So it's not something to go chase and run at all in any sense ever. I mean, think AMC the other day, right? They opened up some theaters, algos bought it up, only to have all of that price be given back in the next couple days. So these epicenter stocks are very tricky like that. But I would fade the action on that. If you're interested in epicenter stock, I mean, that's fine. I play them, but I play them naked puts very low to give me some margin of safety as much as you can. They're tough unless you treat them like oil, but like a really dirty version of oil. Until you have an economy reopening, you shouldn't chase them. If you want to mess around with naked puts like I do, that's one thing, but fade this price movement today. fade it.
If you need to treat excuse me, if you need to treat an instrument like a dirty version of oil, it's probably a stay away. And that to me, Las Vegas Sands and these are a stay away for me at this point. And not just that it's, you know, the price action I'm seeing today. I don't understand it. Revenue growth was supposed to be back in the third quarter for these companies, and Las Vegas Sands 82% decrease in year-over-year growth. That's the same numbers we were seeing last quarter on Las Vegas Sands. That's the same numbers we were seeing the quarter before that on Las Vegas Sands. And so I have a very difficult time wrapping my mind around any thesis that starts with growth on Las Vegas Sands. I just have a hard time wrapping my head around that one.
Well, and just a couple of weeks ago, I saw a report out of Goldman Sachs, Mark, about traffic in Macau being terrible, you know, like foot traffic and whatnot. So I see a longer consolidation.
This price movement should be faded. It should not be chased at all.
Yeah, that's how I see it too.
You're going to be back at that support level before you know it.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to Coca-Cola here. Coca-Cola comes out, numbers 55 cents on the actual EPS numbers. The expectation were 45 cents on that. Revenue came in at 8.7 billion versus the 8.4 billion in expectation. So a beat on EPS numbers, a beat on overall revenue numbers. Revenue did come in, declined year over year at 9% here on Coca-Cola. So what's your guys' rate here on Coca-Cola? Nice, a little bit of a gap up into resistance. Market showed a little bit of weakness post cash open. So nothing crazy in terms of a little bit of profit taking at resistance here on Coca-Cola. But do you guys see anything technically here that is whetting your appetite a little?
You know, it's a really good candidate for like dividend and cash flow covered call type of stuff. And I do see the breakout potential here, which would not hurt a covered call. I think now that you're post earnings, Matt, the numbers were good enough for me. I know that they were 9% down year over year, but it was above the expectations. The market doesn't love it here, but it doesn't hate it either. Up 1% sitting on resistance. I think you could probably approach, if you're the conservative type of cash flow trader now, and you're looking for a stock that might fit a consolidation range or just kind of hang out. And if you catch a breakout nice, I think Coca-Cola could go on to some of those kind of watch lists for traders who are approaching it for cash flow. The breakout, I think you still could trade as well. So I think there's opportunities here now.
It's not a bad safety play.
Yeah,
it really isn't. A couple things. Number one, capture the dividend. And I'm talking obviously a little bit longer term, not shorter term here. Capture the dividend, right covered calls and consolidation. If it ever breaks out of 52, you unleash the dragon, open up the risk graph, and you let potential growth happening, because you got the consolidation over the last month and a half, 2 months. You got a pretty clear area of resistance right there at 51.5 by 52. If you break out of that range, you should see price appreciation at a minimum up into the 55 range. And where's the downside risk? 48, maybe 48 is the downside risk, but you're writing covered calls in that environment. I think it's a pretty decent little safety play with a dividend, a little bit of a cash flow edge. And if it ever breaks 51.5 by 52, you open it up and let price appreciation. But it's not ever going to, you're not going to wake up like Mark did today and be like, oh, look at my profit loss. I'm going to be really happy here today. That's kind of what you want to see here in Coca-Cola, though. You don't want Coca-Cola to spark emotion on the positive or the negative side. It fits that type of mentality within a portfolio. I like it, cash flowing in neutrality with an easy open up the risk graph if it ever breaks out.
If you catch the breakout. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Okay, very good. AT&T maybe?
AT&T somehow, out of the stocks that were interesting to me, AT&T came in with the worst report here. Maybe no, Las Vegas Sands came in with the worst report, but AT&T 76 cents a share on the EPS number versus the expectation of 77 cents, 42.3 billion versus the 41.6 billion. Revenue declined 5% year over year. It's about as a boring of a report as you could potentially get out of a very, very boring company. Why is it up? Very simple. They had higher cell phone sales than anticipated.
Higher cell phone sales.
Well, and it's not hard to get a lot of buy as you're overextended to the downside in a very.
I think that's what it is. I mean, you're really overextended, and because that was an AT&T earnings.
It was an
report,
AT&T
right?
report. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you come in with an AT&T earnings report and you're overextended the downside, you're going to get a nice pop like that. So,
Yeah. I don't think there's anything to see here though.
AT&T will go back into its AT&T. AT&T is AT&T. If you trade AT&T
That's
like I
AT&T.
do, I mean, it's just AT&T. Great dividend stock. Eventually, I'll sell a naked put that gets put.
There is a tremendous amount of analysis that says you start picking up AT&T between really 21 and 26.
Mm-hmm.
Look at those levels.
Yeah,
there.
my naked put was 24. It's going to expire worthless.
I wouldn't sell anything under 20, right? But I don't think you can get any premium under 20 either. So
I sell, yeah, no, I've sold as high as 27, as low as 22 this year on AT&T, and they've all expired worthless.
Yeah, there's nothing on the daily chart, but historically buyers do come in on AT&T for the last 30, 40 years, guys.
Myself
at those
included.
low
But the
points,
dividend
yeah.
the dividend ratio in the low to mid 20s is just so appealing for a dividend investor. It's
We're
just
7%, 7.5% right now. So
yeah, and so even if you got put lower, it's even higher, right? So so yeah, I'll continue to make like $22 a month on AT&T. Right.
Hey, pay for your HBO Max. You know, they did see some subscriber numbers going up in there on digital. Matt, Freeport next, is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, let's take a look at Freeport here. Obviously, the copper company that we love looking at when it comes to any type of breakout on copper that we saw a couple of days ago. Now we have earnings here. Earnings came in at 29 cents a share versus the expectation of 24. Revenue came in at 3.9 billion versus 3.7 billion expectation. Revenue increased 16.4% year over year.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful chart still, you know, the trend is there. You know, Mark, this is an area of the market that you've been all over, copper and the gold kicker here. I mean, what's your read on Freeport?
Well, I mean,
and very quickly before you guys go on, where it says 22 cents, the 29 cents is the adjusted number.
I see.
No, listen, Freeport is something I'll probably always have a naked put on at all times, just because it's the only way I play copper. And I like it because as a gold bug-ish kind of guy, they do about 23% gold. They obviously benefited from higher. This is the nice thing about earnings and commodity companies. You have a pretty good sense of what they're going to be, right? Let me give you a preview of Exxon. They didn't do very good, you know, coming up. But you have a pretty good sense of how the company did based on the commodity prices, right? I mean, it's one of the nice things about earnings and commodities. And they did a lot more copper. Their copper load was a lot bigger than it normally is. They benefited from higher gold prices. Copper's breaking out, gold's strong. Freeport's a company I feel comfortable with, and that's a beautiful technical chart right now.
Yep.
Well, and not only that, Mark, but they did increase, and all those numbers are very good, Mark, but they also did increase their cash position up about 7% from a year ago as well, and they're currently holding about 2.4 billion in cash. I think Freeport's in a position, guys. They're in a pretty big, safe position here.
Yeah, I agree.
Any others grab your attention, Matt?
CMG.
Chipotle.
Matt's third favorite company.
It's certainly up there. CMG comes in at $3.76 a share versus $3.44. Revenue came in at 1.6. Revenue increased 14.1% year over year. Kind of a boring report. Just wanted to bring it up because it's a popular company. A little bit of gap down. Nothing changes technically. You're looking at this from a neutrality position. And if it ever breaks out, that's when you're looking at Chipotle.
Mm-hmm. And in the restaurant space, Mark, companies like Chipotle that have gone to digital and online sales and ordering, you know, they did make note that a lot of their revenue, Matt, right now is coming from those online sales and ordering. A little gap.
They got a pretty loyal customer base, right? And that digital transformation that they did, you know, their loyal customer base. I mean, that's pretty decent. Now, a lot of this was priced in, right? It really got. I mean, this had a tremendous run off the March lows. And so a lot of this, like they're doing really great, has been priced in. So, but yeah, no, it's Chipotle. Chipotle is a really popular company, both in the real world and in the stock market right now.
Yep. Okay. Anything else?
They need to reverse split 10-1 so we can trade it again or something.
They may not reverse split here for a while, or not reverse split, but
yeah,
they may not split for a
they
while.
definitely don't want to
They
reverse.
don't want to reverse.
I mean, you
split.
know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we know what you mean, but we definitely, some people might not know.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, a split would be healthy for CMG, but yeah, I don't have a lot of interest in the company.
Yep. Any others, Maddie?
Nope, that was it for me.
Marky, news items from you?
Well, we had the airlines have their earnings report, right? And so they lost a lot of money.
Both
So-
Southwest American did lose a lot of money. Yeah, that's they were pretty boring reports I saw. Go ahead.
They're basically the casino.
That's right.
I mean, they need a bailout or they're in trouble.
They're in trouble without a bailout.
Peloton downgraded by Goldman Sachs from buy to neutral, basically saying, hey, it's had a nice run, right? It's had a nice run. Overstock.com coming in with free shipping on everything and no subscription and no minimum order. Not moving a lot.
What's Overstock?
OSTK.
Mm-hmm.
Not moving a lot on the news, but like if you order things from overstock.com, free shipping on everything. And then the headlines, like I was trying to.
So you're just marketing for Overstock right now then?
Hey, listen, I might have a naked put.
Okay, so you're not marketing. You're just trying to get people to
You're
help.
speaking your book.
Guys, don't listen to Mark on Overstock.
Yeah.
That naked put is way low, way low, way low. But no, I mean, I was surprised it didn't get a little bump on that because, and the thing that caught me, and it's the same thing you were commenting on the Tesla earnings and the Lam Research, is things that you normally see get a bump. Because if this had happened to Overstock 3 months ago, Overstock would be up 8% on the news. You are not seeing the same algo bump off these generated headlines. And it's very, very curious, right? It's really, really curious. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around what it means. Are investors, are the machines being just cautious, saying, listen, election's coming up in 12 days. We're just going to be cautious on everything. I mean, I don't know what it means, but I do know it's curious, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is curious in that regard. And watching these reactions and price action is something that we're going to keep paying attention to. Matt, you bringing up the S&P 500. I saw a nice little move intraday back into congestion, but there's still so much congestion back there. I don't think the analysis would change from earlier, waiting for clarity, waiting for confirmation, all that kind of stuff. But you did catch a nice little bump up there, just a little bit, intraday.
Oh, I
That's all.
I didn't have any commentary on
That's
it.
all. I have two charts I want you guys to give me a read on real quick, and then that's all I've got for today. Look at Zoom's development here recently. We had it on the report a couple weeks ago on the little triangle breakout. Now it's on a nice little retracement. Matt, interest here in Zoom?
Yeah, we'll have a conversation on it tomorrow in the scanner report meeting.
I mean, that's a pretty nice technical pullback, right? Old breakout point, old resistance, new support, lining up right with that 20-day moving average.
Increase in volume on the breakout, decrease in volume on the retracement. Yeah,
it's pretty classic.
We'll have a conversation tomorrow.
It's pretty classic. I mean, I've been not much of a Zoom player, but I might look at a spread or something because it's just sometimes there's just such textbook patterns that you're like, oh my gosh, I hate doing this, but I gotta, how do you not? So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I always have so much fun on Fridays. We're going to be looking forward to having Coach Frank here tomorrow as well as we start doing our scanning. By the way, if you've been watching our YouTube channel recently, we've been uploading some videos from that August event. One of them was an hour on scanning, and Coach Frank talked a little bit about how he looks for charts, looks at different information. I'd go back and watch that replay if you've not. Other than that, guys, final thoughts for the team out there. Mark, you first.
I'm doing my best in life because I'm so tired of the negativity in our country right now. I'm doing my best just to try to be as positive as I possibly can. I know there's so many emotions. We have a presidential debate tonight that I don't know what the market implications are. Who knows, right? But let's just do our best, not just in our community, not just in our families. Let's just do our best to at least smile. Like at least, and if we can't smile, let's go watch Netflix and chill out. So
By the way, there was a wonderful message from the Utah gubernatorial candidates this morning on civility and all that kind of stuff. I think, I echo those comments, Mark. I think that positivity, keeping people around you and focusing on the detail and whatnot, absolutely. I think it's a great mindset and attitude. Matt, final thoughts here?
Yeah, I have something very, very important to add to that. And what I'd like to say is this: bullish haramis need confirmation.
Bullish haramis need confirmation.
Yep.
I like it. I like it. Boys and girls out there, halftime crew, we appreciate you guys very much. Thanks for being a part of our show on a daily basis. We're going to keep tracking this technical read on the markets, the news on a daily basis. If you've not done it yet, click the thumbs up. Let's get the analytics up there. If you are new to our channel and have not subscribed yet, click subscribe, click the bell, and come back and join us each and every day. Coach Frank will be here tomorrow, as always. Looking forward to that. Other than that, guys, we are out. We've got a cash flow club tonight for pro members. And if you're not yet a pro member, there's a 15-day trial to our pro member community in every one of our YouTube video descriptions. Just go find the link, come and join us on the back end, see what we're doing on a daily basis with our traders and our community at Tackle Trading. Good job here today, guys.
One more thing before you close out.
Yep.
Coach Emily asked that we remind them about Women in Trading tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. So all of our ladies out there, make sure you join Coach Emily. Never been there myself, but here it's a fantastically fun event when all the girls get together with their wine and they talk, I assume, trading.
Yeah, I've never been there either, Cody, but
We're not
Tammy
allowed.
from Texas has been there a few times. So
Sneaking
saying.
in, are you? I got you.
Just saying.
So, Cody, that's tomorrow, 8:30 Eastern?
Tomorrow, 8:30 Eastern.
Yep, that's right. All right, so ladies, women in trading, Friday night, plan your schedule. Have your date night on Saturday this week. Make sure you come and join Coach Emily for the Women in Trading tomorrow night. All right, guys, now we are out. We'll